Welcome to Million Dollar Grit, the podcast that dives deep into the world of entrepreneurship where tenacity meets strategy and dreams meet reality. My name is Julie, and I explore the raw, often overlooked truths of what it takes to succeed in business and in life. It's not just about the glossy success stories, it's about the grit it takes to get there. Hi everyone, this is Julie. Welcome back to another episode of Million Dollar Grit. Okay, today I want to talk about the most important assets in your online business and why they are worth investing in. I did a VIP session with a client yesterday, and we were talking about their offers and value ladder and all this great stuff. And what we came down to after a 3-hour conversation where we talked about everything from key performance indicators to positioning to copy to scripts to ads to pricing, all of that stuff, is we came down to her job was to create 3 sales assets that she could use. And I find that people tend to skimp on these assets, or they don't see the importance, or they think maybe they're not, as relevant. And I want to talk about each one because they are literally the lifeblood of an online business. So the first sales asset that you need to take stock in is your sales page. So for any offer that you put out there, it doesn't matter what the container is, your sales page is the representation of that offer online. And it needs to be really, really good from a copywriting perspective and a design perspective. And so if you are putting out an offer and you are trying to figure out where do I invest or where do I DIY it, very rarely will DIYing it get you ultimately where your vision is. The exception to that is if you have a really good coach who can help you with the copy, which is something that I would say to people when they have a limited budget, like, hey, let's work on the copy together and then hire the designer. Right now, the one skill that is still very, very difficult to teach, it's very difficult to learn, and there's not tons and tons and tons of AI support yet, are on the design of sales pages. So I do recommend that people use designers for sales pages. And if you can't afford a designer because, $2,000 or $3,000 isn't in your budget, the next best step is to use a professionally designed template and don't mess with it. And that's what we teach in our DIY programs because they really do make a huge difference. But in terms of copy, especially with AI, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? If you don't understand the copywriting frameworks, you don't understand positioning, you don't understand your audience, you don't understand transformation versus information, you're not going to have good sales copy. So it's important to work with someone, learn from someone. But that is the first sales asset that you absolutely need to pay solid attention to. Now, the second sales asset is kind of like a sister, and that is a PDF version of your sales page. Now, why would this be important? There's a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest is that sometimes you're not driving traffic to a sales page, right? It's not getting a lot of traffic, but for whatever reason, you're in events, you're in groups, you're getting introduced to people, and you can send a PDF in an email with a personal message. You can send it in a DM, and a PDF acts kind of like a sales page brochure. So I do recommend that if you're going to go through the trouble of making a beautiful sales page, you make a PDF version that has links in it as well, because, you can email it to someone, they can look at it, they can click on the links, they can get on your calendar or buy or what have you. So that's the second asset, and that can be done. That's actually easier than a sales page. And so if you are like really bootstrapping it and you don't have a lot of money and you're not very techie, you can actually launch with just a PDF. Right? So that can be a minimum viable launch because a very nicely designed PDF can do a lot of heavy lifting. And I would say it's better to launch with a nicely designed PDF than it is to launch with a shoddily made sales page. Okay, so that's the second asset. The third asset, and this one is the king, but also the hardest to create, is the webinar presentation. And the reason why this one is so tough is because it's combining sort of 3 things in one. It's combining this idea of a hook, right? Getting people sucked into a presentation, kind of like the way a TV show gets you hooked in those first 5 minutes. Then there's the content, and the content has to be very strategic. It's easy to go one way or the other, right? One way where you're like too much information, too much, their belly is full of information and they really don't feel like they need anything. And then the other side is too much fluff, so they feel like you're wasting their time, right? So that's the second part. And then the third part is actually presenting the offer, making the pitch, whether that is to buy something or apply, doesn't really matter. But this presentation is so valuable because it can be done live. It can be put inside of modules as a bonus. It can be done on demand. It can be reconstructed so that you're teaching different parts of it on different podcast episodes. You can do short video versions of it. You can extract the content and turn it into a non-pitch teaching, right? This is worth spending the time and the energy and the money to get right. And so I would say to people who are feeling, for whatever reason, that their marketing and their sales, they don't feel super confident. These are the 3 assets: the sales page, the webinar, and the PDF version of the sales page. And with those 3 assets, you can do so much. So in terms of developing which one to do first, second, third, it really depends on what your goals are. I think that there are a lot of people that would benefit from doing a live webinar every single week. Even though that may sound exhausting, I think it's solid advice. I think it gets you practicing how to talk about your offer and how to talk about the problems and solutions that precede your offer as well. And you get a lot of feedback and you know what works and you know what doesn't. So I think the webinar is very valuable. I think if you are, very low on cash and needing a cash injection, the PDF with individual intros and emails works really great and can get you those first couple of buyers. And then the sales page, whenever you have something living on a website or you're directing traffic or you're using paid traffic, you want that sales page to be really dialed in. So those are the 3 sales assets that you need. And in terms of the tech and the skills, it's copy and design. And then depending on where you're putting the webinar or the sales page, there's some tech involved. Copy is something that can be learned, especially with GPTs and AI and a good coach or possibly some training. You can create great copy. Design is a little bit harder. You still can do it. And, we teach it inside of Funnel Gorgeous Society. And I think we do one of the better jobs of teaching design to people who are not designers. But if you can afford a designer, you absolutely should take the plunge. And if you can't, you should use a template that's professionally designed and really don't get too creative with it. Like, don't overdo it. My business partner, Kathy, is always saying, if you're not a good designer, less is more, right? Because the more you do, the more you can reveal how bad you are. So, it's really hard to prove you're a bad designer when your PDF or your sales page is just in a super black and white newspaper format, right? You're like, are they a good designer or not? We don't know. Maybe this was their aesthetic choice. But the more you start to add stuff in, the worse it gets. This is the same thing with logos, right? If you just do a straight text-based logo in a nice clean font, people are like, are they not a designer, or was that just a design choice, right? They don't know. But the minute you start adding little clip art swigglies and stuff, you're revealing how bad you are. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're building those assets. And, when it comes to slide deck presentations, I know that there are a lot of AI tools that are helping with these now. I have to say, I am definitely pro AI. I mean, if you have been following me, you know that this is something I'm talking about a lot. And there's a program called Gamma, which is really awesome, and I use it. But when it comes to the webinar, it's important not to scrimp. And I definitely can't get Gamma to create a presentation that's as good or as deeply emotionally shifting as if I do it myself. So if you need support with a webinar, depending on when you're listening to this episode in March 2025, we're going to be opening the doors to our Launch Gorgeous coaching program. We're going to be focusing on live webinars. So definitely check out launchgorgeous.com, get on the wait list for that. If it's after and Launch Gorgeous is over, you actually can get the replay of Launch Gorgeous Live Webinar Edition through our accelerator program. So you can go check that out at launchgorgeous.com as well. So go forth with your 3 sales assets. Take the time and the energy and the money to make those really awesome. It'll make everything about marketing easier in the long run. Talk to you soon. And there you have it, folks. Another dose of $1 Million Grit. I hope today's episode has left you feeling inspired, equipped, and ready to face your own entrepreneurial journey with resolve. Remember, until next time, embrace the struggle, harness your grit, and keep pushing forward. You're stronger than any challenge you face. I'm Julie, and this has been $1 Million Grit.